Okay, lesson 67, radical denominators. It's a new word, and that is conjugate. We say that one binomial, one term is a conjugate of the other if only the second sign is changed. So -4, negative, the square root of 3 is a conjugate of -4 positive square root of 3. And if we got -4 positive square root of 3, negative the square root of 3, the conjugate is -4 positive the square root of 3. So if we change the sign in the second term in a binomial or a two-part expression, we say that this second term is a conjugate of the first term. And this becomes useful because if we would multiply those conjugates, -4 positive square root of 3, -4 negative square root of 3, if we would multiply them, we come out with perfect squares. We come out with something that gets rid of, that eliminates this radicand, this radical. So it's a way of getting rid of radicals is multiply it by its conjugate. So if we multiply this guy by its conjugate, we get rid of this radicand, and we've got a sensible number. This is useful because some fractions contain radicands in the denominator. And for today's lesson, this is saying, for today's lesson or just in algebra, we say that an expression is simplified whenever there is no more radicand, no more square root in the denominator. Okay? So, it's simplified when there's no more radicands in the denominator. That's what we're going to do today, simplify simple problems like this by multiplying this guy by his conjugate. And that will get rid of our radicand in the denominator. Sure, we'll get a radicand up the numerator, but we don't care. That's okay. All right. Work the two class practice ones. Right, let me turn on some of the light too. Okay, first one, 1 over -3 positive square root of 7. And how do we get rid of that radicand in the denominator? Well, let's multiply this guy by his, multiply him by the conjugate. So we're going to go multiply this guy by the conjugate, which is -3 negative the square root of 7. And -3 negative the square root of 7. Now, how do we multiply these guys? I'm going to set it up and multiply it horizontally. So we're going to go -3 positive the square root of 7 times -3 negative the square root of 7, starting out. So negative the square root of 7 times positive the square root of 7. So we're going to have a negative number, but negative the square root of 7 times positive square root of 7. Square root of 7 times square root of 7 is 7. Remember that rule. The square root of 7 times the square root of 7 equals 7. Square root of x times the square root of x equals x. Square root of whatever, it equals, if we multiply two square roots, we equal the regular number, because this guy is basically these two guys squared. So just remember that. Probably you do already. And we're going to make this guy negative because we're going a negative times a negative. And square root of 7 times -3. Here we've got two negatives, so we're going to make it positive. And we're going to go 3 to the square root of 7. Now, -3 times positive the square root of 7, so that's going to be a negative. That's going to be -3 square root of 7. See how these two guys are going to cancel each other out, and we're going to be excellent. -3 times -3 is 9, positive 9, positive 9. So adding together, positive 9, and this goes to nothing because it's positive negative, and this is -7. 9 minus 7 equals 2. So our answer is, if we multiply 1 times -3 and negative square root of 7, we obviously just end up with -3 negative the square root of 7 over 2. Done. There's no more radicands in the denominator. Moving on to this second one. 5 over 3 times the square root of 2 plus the square root of 3. Let's multiply this guy by his conjugate. Multiply the entire business by his conjugate. So it's 3 the square root of 2 minus the square root of 3. Just change the second sign. And 3 the square root of 2 minus the square root of 3. Okay, and let's multiply these two guys together. We can save a little space if I just write this one right underneath here. And we go 3 to the square root of 2 minus 3. So now we're looking at this business. Negative 3 times the square root of 3 is going to be negative 3 times the square root of 3. Oh, wait. That was supposed to have the square root sign over it. So negative 3 times, we're going a negative times a positive, and it's square root times square root, so it's just going to be plain 3. And square root of 3 times 3 to the square root of 2. So let's keep our 3 out front, the coefficient 3, and let's multiply these two guys in the den. And we get 3 times 2 is 6, square root of 6. And this was a negative here, so these are both negatives, negatives, and negatives. Now, 3 to the square root of 2 times square root of 3. And here again, let's multiply the coefficients, which we get 3. And 2 times 3 is square root of 6. So that's nicely going to cancel each other out. And now the square root of 2 times square root of 2, 3 square root of 2 times 3 the square root of 2. The way we're going to do this is I'm going to write it down here, times 3 the square root of 2. 3 times 3, 9. Square root of 2 to square root of 2 is just plain 2. So 9 times 2, which equals 18. So I'm just going to put 18 out here. So 18, these two guys cancel each other out, minus 3, which equals 15. So on the bottom here, we're going to go 15, and on the top, 5 times 3 the square root of 2 is going to be 15 times the square root of 2 minus 5 times the square root of 3, which is 5 times the negative square root of 3. And we're done. Simplified as far as we can get it. That is the lesson.